So let's dive into a really fascinating and honestly a pretty challenging argument. What's the best way to deal with a moral leader whose ideas ask a little too much of us? Well, it turns out the most powerful way to kill a message might not be to fight it at all. It might be to do the exact opposite.
So how do you defeat a powerful idea or a leader that you can't just crush? The obvious answer, is to fight them head on. But the source material for this explainer suggests a much more surprising and effective method.
In this slide, right here is the core idea. The world has tried two ways to get rid of Jesus' challenging message. The first was to crucify him. Direct, brutal, right out in the open. But the second method, and this is the whole point, is far more subtle and in the end, more fatal to the message itself. Just worship him.
Yeah, that first attempt, it completely backfired. The cross didn't crush his influence at all. It actually lifted him up, became this powerful symbol that spread his message like wildfire. The opposition itself became the fuel for the movement. So, clearly, a new, much cleverer strategy was needed.
And that leads us right here to the central theme, praise as a form of evasion. This is the subtle art of getting rid of a leader's difficult, demanding moral message by putting them up on a pedestal and adoring them instead of actually following them.
So how does this actually work? Well, you dress up the message in these elaborate creeds. You hide its tough demands behind beautiful rituals and sacraments. You build these gorgeous sanctuaries where the ideals can be safely contained, far away from the messiness of real life. Basically, you put the leader on a high altar, far from the common road, and you do absolutely anything for them except the one thing they actually asked you to do.
And you might think this is some new modern critique, but it's not. The source points out that Jesus himself saw this exact pattern happening with the great prophets who came before him. He was totally aware of this very human tendency to honor a memory just so you can avoid the message.
He laid out this really clear cycle. First, one generation, let's call them the fathers. They kill the prophets because their message is just too uncomfortable. Then, the next generation, the children, they come along and build these beautiful, elaborate tombs in their honor. And the result? In both cases, the prophet's actual, difficult message gets safely ignored. And Jesus' own words on this are, wow, they're absolutely piercing. He's saying that building a tomb for a prophet makes you a son of the very people who killed them. He saw both actions, killing them and memorializing them as two sides of the very same coin, the coin of evasion. Now, just to show how universal this pattern is, let's look at an example that has nothing to do with ancient religion. Let's talk about the paradox of Abraham Lincoln and see how praise was basically weaponized to sink his legacy. Think about it. While he was alive, Lincoln faced this constant, crushing opposition. But after he was assassinated, suddenly he became this object of almost universal national adoration. So what happened in the 10 years that followed? Congress pushed through a policy towards the South that was the absolute opposite of the unity and magnanimity he had fought and died for.
It's just such a stark contradiction, isn't it? They praised his name while they actively dismantled his policies. They adored his memory while they completely denied his spirit of forgiveness. They effectively neutralized Lincoln's challenging vision by turning him into a harmless marble statue.
Okay, now for maybe the most jarring example of all. Take these lyrics from a very famous hymn. I mean, they're beautiful, right? A powerful statement of faith.
But here's the kicker. The man who wrote them, Sir John Bowring, was also the British governor in Hong Kong who was overseeing the deeply immoral policy of forcing opium on the Chinese population. Now, the source isn't saying he was a conscious hypocrite. That's the key. It's that this just brilliantly shows how easily we can separate emotional worship from moral action. You can sing about the cross while your actions go against everything it stands for.
So, all of this brings us to the absolute core of the argument, the crucial, critical difference between emotion and morals, between what we feel and what we actually do.
It really boils down to this. On one side, you have emotional adoration. That's saying, Lord, Lord, appreciating the beauty of the music, the stained glass, having sentimental feelings. But on the other side, you have moral following. That's actually doing the will of the Father, living the truth, building an honorable character. One is aesthetics, the other is ethics. When you get right down to it, the central command was never a call for us to just stand by and adore. It was a direct, active, and frankly difficult invitation. Follow me.
And what's really interesting is that the original meaning of the word worship wasn't about adoration at all. It actually comes from worthship, which is the act of recognizing the true worth in something or someone. That implies an active judgment of value, not just a passive feeling.
The source uses this incredible metaphor. It says, a great life is like a piece of music. It wasn't written just so we could admire it from a distance. No, it was written to be reproduced, to be played again and again in the lives of ordinary people. So the true test isn't what we say about someone. It's whether we're making that same music with our own lives.
And in the end, it all comes back to this. The ultimate summary, from the source himself. It's not about the words we say, or the titles we use, or the songs we sing. It is, and it has always been, about what we do.
So what do we do with all this? The final step, the really crucial one, is to take this lesson and apply it to our world right now.
And that leaves us with this question, a question for all of us. Who are the moral leaders, the prophets, the changemakers that we praise today? Who do we put on our money and celebrate with holidays? Maybe, just maybe, so that we don't have to actually grapple with the radical, uncomfortable, and transformative challenge of their real message. It's a pattern as old as time, and it's one that's definitely worth watching out for.